How to make a wood and LED light up sign. This sign is a trailer warming gift for my friend. There's a couple unique features about this sign that you probably won't find anywhere else. First and most obviously, you can tell the lettering is custom. But if you take a look closer, you'll also find micro lettering inside of the large letters. You're watching YouTube channel Ray's Fix. All of these videos are made by Raymond Gallant. Please take a moment to like and subscribe. It's free and it'll help me out. Okay, let's get started right now. Let's start with the lettering. This is the vinyl lettering that I bought that I was going to put on, and the sizing isn't quite right, and it just didn't have that pop or pizzazz that I wanted to present. So I decided to custom print with a 3D printer the lettering that I wanted. So I came up with a couple of different styles. First, there was this solid gray. It was just a test piece. It looked nice. Here's what it looks like lit up. I mean, it's pleasant enough. Then I came up with this idea of micro lettering. So in the letters, I was going to put a saying. So in this case, there's 5 letters. So we decided to go with living life to its fullest inside of the actual lettering. So I 3D printed the letters, put glue on them, and actually physically glued them on to the solar lights. Spaced them out, marked where they're supposed to go, and then taped them into place. So once they're all together, you can sort of see what it spells out. Now you got to admit, this looks so much better than just plain lettering, cheap vinyl lettering I was going to use before. I didn't use a cheap glue. I used a very expensive industrial strength glue to make sure that the lettering actually adhered to the plastic and to the glass at the same time. Originally I was using a piece of pressure treated wood, but I came up with this idea of using a log instead, and it turned out so much better.
That was a lot of planing. It's relatively flat now.
Here's a cool trick that I used to mount the lights. You might be able to use it in some of your future projects. Get a piece of masking tape, put it across all of the pieces that you want to mount in the same orientation that you want to mount them. Then take a pen and trace out the inside of the holes that you need to mount them to.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cheat a small amount. I'm going to actually take this tape off and wrap it back around here because I'm not ready to pre-install my screws yet. So it's a good way of storing this without actually damaging it or having to redo it again.
Now that our template is safely stored and ready to use when we need it, now we need to prepare and lay out our spacings on our wooden block.
Okay, so basically what I did is I lined these up as good as I could. I'm referencing off of this surface here, and I want to make a little mark here so I can lay my measuring tape across. Then I'm going to center punch the holes, and I'm going to put my screws in to mount these pieces here using the piece of tape that we just laid out on. Okay, something that I didn't show, I'm actually using pencil, not ink, to mark on here because I don't want it to bleed through after I put a finish or a sealer on this piece of wood. Now I'm going to take this piece of tape and I'm going to lay it out so it lines up with this mark here and the mark over here, and then I'm going to put my screws in. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to center punch in the center of each one of these holes here, and then I'm going to put my screws in. Let's talk about screws for a second here. So this is a really nice big stainless steel one. This would work awesome for holding the light on or anything else on, but the problem is the head size is way too big. It wouldn't fit through here, so therefore this is not even an option. So a nice small screw with a good size length. This is long enough because it doesn't require a lot of force for this light to stay onto the wall or any other fixture. So I decided to go with these guys, and it fits nicely into our slot. Here's another little trick. If you have the ability to pull off the back plate, what you can do then is set your depth, because these can be difficult to set. You can measure them and set them all to the same, but you'll never know if it really snaps in unless you actually have the piece that you can slide on. So I took this off. I could have also laid it down and used it for my spacings. Okay, we're done with this now. We can pull this guy off. And we have our screws set to the proper depth. Let's try fitting a couple lights to this guy. It is super easy to damage these lights, so every time I handle them, I put them back into a case or a box or something so that they won't be damaged. the coolest part about this is probably the micro lettering. Living life to its fullest.
Okay, it's time to seal the wood. Basically, I just used any Varathane or sealer that I had in my cabinet. So this is what I ended up using. I paid particularly attention to doing the outside edges where the bark and the moss was. I wanted to maintain that, so I put a very, very heavy coat onto that area as well. You need to mount the log onto a piece of plywood or other piece of wood to prevent it from splitting. It'll still crack or check, but it won't fall into 2 or 3 different pieces if you mount it onto a piece of wood.
Okay, step 2, or any other step. Basically, I put this guy on top of here, and I'm going to cut off the excess. The reason why I'm putting plywood on the back, and I'm going to put a bunch of screws in and some adhesive, is if this guy decides to do a giant crack along here, that it won't fall into 2 pieces. It'll be held together by the board, and this should stop it actually from cracking into 2 pieces. We'll see. As you can tell, I am not using the most or the best piece of plywood. I'm just using what I have. So I'm just gonna go now. This is the original that I traced, and then I'm gonna move it off by about 1/4 of an inch so it doesn't stick out. And I'm gonna cut it, screw it, and glue it on. And then I'm going to paint the back. And that's it.
The next operation is quite simple. Basically, you just cut out on the lines and you're good to go. I also turned around and painted the back of this and the log black.
Okay, so I cut this out, so there's some gappage here all the way around. Now I'm going to put some adhesive between this board, plywood, and our wood, and then I'm going to paint the back. I'll just zip these screws down and the back will be fastened on. Okay, I had to put a piece of wood on top of the sensors, but that's what it looks like when it's lit up. And this is what it looks like when it's not lit up. It's hard to capture what it actually looks like in the dark, but this is relatively close. Living life to its fullest. That doesn't look so bad. One of the nicest features is I kept the bark on, and by varathaning the bark and the moss, it'll never peel off, hopefully. There's 3 thick coats of varathane on here. I really like the way it turned out.
I'm glad to see that you enjoyed the video. If you want to see other videos on sign making, I have 1 or 2 more on my YouTube channel, Ray's Fix. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them in the comments section below. And if you got any value out of this video, please like and subscribe. It's free and it'll help me out. All you have to do is click on the icon on my face and I'll do the rest. Thanks for watching the video and have a great night.